The word nostalgia comes to us from the ancient Greek language. Nostos means homecoming. Algos means pain or distress. And those living in the 18th century would have known nostalgia as a diagnosable disease, marked by severe and debilitating homesickness. Today in worship, we travel the road away from home and back again. Our opening words are from Billy Collins, whom I consider to be the poet laureate of memory and nostalgia. On turning 10, the whole idea of it makes me feel like I'm coming down with something worse than any stomachache or the headaches I get from reading in bad light. A kind of measles of the spirit, a mumps of the psyche, disfiguring chickenpox of the soul. You tell me it is too early to be looking back, but that is because you have forgotten the perfect simplicity of being one, and the beautiful complexity introduced by two. But I can lie in my bed and remember every digit. At 4, I was an Arabian wizard. I could make myself invisible by drinking a glass of milk a certain way. At 7, I was a soldier. At 9, a prince. But now, I'm mostly at the window, watching the late afternoon light. Back then, it never fell so solemnly against the side of my treehouse. And my bicycle never leaned against the garage as it does today, drained of all its dark blue speed. This is the beginning of sadness, I say to myself, as I walk through the universe in my sneakers. It's time to say goodbye to my imaginary friends, time to turn the first big number. It seems only yesterday I used to believe there was nothing under my skin but light. If you cut me, I could shine. But now when I fall upon the sidewalks of life, I skin my knees. I bleed. I feel like I'm coming down with something. That's what I told my friend Deirdre's mother. I think I need to call my parents to come get me. I was 8 and at a sleepover with some friends from school. I wasn't actually sick, save for perhaps a mild measles of the spirit. But suddenly I wanted nothing more than to be home. It wasn't my first sleepover, but I was going through a phase. It was one of those times when the changes of growing up makes life feel fragile, as it is. One of those times that happens at every age, when transition forces us to see the reality of an ever-changing, ever-moving world, and we just want to grab on to something for a moment. We just want to feel still. This was compounded by the fact that I was old enough to figure out at some level what it was that I was feeling, no longer small enough to react without the consequence of reflection. Not only was I feeling like the world was changing without end, I could recognize that the world indeed was changing without end and always would. And there would be no slowing it down. During this phase, the longer I was away from home, the more uncomfortable I began to feel, unmoored as though I would float off and drift away in the vastness of space forever. This is legitimately an irrational and improbable fear of mine, breeded by movies on space travel, this fear of drifting forever. And even after my parents picked me up and tucked me safely into my own bed, the feeling still echoed. Even after I tiptoed in to check and make sure they were still safely tucked into their bed, the feeling still echoed. I needed to make sure the world was safe and warm. I needed to be sure I was anchored somewhere, that I belonged. That need remains at any age, that deep need for home. When you're 8, the preferred term might be separation anxiety. When you're a teen and you want home and freedom from home all at the same time, it's bad attitude. When you're a young adult in that sanctioned time between leaving home and creating your own, it's just called life. When you're fully grown, by whatever standard, that need might be a funk, later perhaps a midlife crisis, finally a well-earned nostalgia. The name changes, the need does not. Far from it, actually. The further we venture forth into the world, the more we realize that the world is not always safe and warm, the more we need a place to belong. Perhaps we would do well to name this need nostalgia at any age, but in the 18th century definition of the word, that disease, that dis-ease of existential homesickness. As I mentioned earlier, nostalgia is from the Greek roots nostos, meaning homecoming, and algos, meaning pain, the pain of homecoming. To me, this breakdown of the word is illustrative because it points out that this is the kind of pain that is born of loving deeply, even in the face of loss. Nostalgia comes when we love things and they change, which is always. You can't return, says Joni Mitchell. You can only look from behind, from where you came. Whether at 8 or 18 or 80, really many times over the course of our lives, we all learn the intertwining dance of love and loss. We all lose our uncomplicated sense that the world is only good and we are held. Many in the world are forced to lose it sooner than we could imagine and far sooner than we would ever wish. We all lose the fullness of our original sense of home and remember it with a deep and grieving love. And that is part of why we are here, in church, in this hallowed house of the ages, to find a home that lasts, to know and be assured that we are bound by that eternal sense of love that can never be lost, to hold on together to what is good, and to be held. The 18th century German philosopher and poet Novalis once said that philosophy is essentially homesickness, the universal impulse to be home. You could say the same of the Western religious tradition, the ancient Israelites who sat down by the rivers of Babylon and wept for their earthly home and their transcendent religious home, who hung their harps on the weeping willow and held on to that memory, even through pain. Descended from the people of Israel who lived and wept and wandered in exile, the Jewish tradition understands the depth of homesickness possible in the heart and the collective psyche. The Christian tradition, too, seems to recognize the gravity of spiritual exile. Jesus describes heaven as his Father's house and assures us that the kingdom of God is a place where we all belong. Mircea Eliade, an influential anthropologist and theorist of religion, goes a step further to say that the impulse at the heart of religion itself, all religion all over the world, is the myth of eternal return, the deep-seated desire to return once more, not to the home of our childhood, but to our primordial and spiritual origins. We need religion, he thinks, to create a sacred space and a sacred sense of time that links us firmly to that time before time began, when the cosmos was our home. We need sacred space because while we can't return to that origin in body, we can create its parallel in this time and in this place. Our collective experience, Eliade thought, moves on in cycles, that carousel of time that goes round and round. And in that, he thinks, is relief. Because though we can't truly return, we are assured that we'll cycle back again. A religious faith can give us a home to carry with us. It can assure us in times of nostalgia that we will always belong once again. As our teenage selves would certainly tell us, the answer to our homesickness is not to stay at home forever. To resist the tides of change so firmly is tantamount to death. We must leave home, and our children too, but the hope is that all of us carry a deep sense of home and rootedness wherever we go, and that it provides us a place from which we can venture forth. The faith is that we will find a place of solid ground from which we can truly grow. Irish Catholic poet John O'Donoghue tells us that to be, we need to be home, but not in order to wrap ourselves in blankets and avoid our living. Rather, he says, when a place to belong is assured, the adventure of growth can begin in earnest. Home is the sure center where individual life is shaped and from where it journeys forth. The sense of solid ground in our lives shifts. The economy crashes, the earth's crust moves, the pet dies, third grade begins, as it did for me. But when we give it time and attention and love, there is an inner ground that can steady us. And we can create a home in our hearts that carries us through the tides of time and change. O'Donoghue describes this state of being. When one is at home in oneself, one is integrated and enjoys a sense of balance and poise. In a sense, he says, that is exactly what spirituality is, the art of homecoming. That is exactly what spirituality is, the art of homecoming. And this house is a home for growing our spirits, for belonging in ourselves and in our community. We nurture that sense of balance and poise here by what we do and by the theology that centers our lives. I actually trace my path to ministry exactly back to that first phase of homesickness of the spirit when I was 8. Maybe even to that call home from Deirdre's house. I think I'm coming down with something, I lied. But that first chicken pox of the soul changed me. All right, said something inside me. The world is changing and complicated, and you've got to start making some meaning of it. And that, for me, was the starting point of a lifelong theological journey that continued to this day and continues still. Luckily, I was growing up in a church that could help. I had a spiritual home. It was a place of rootedness that gave me courage to venture forth into the world. It was a place of sanctuary where I could always return to find center again when I got off track or began to feel unmoored. It was a place of community where I learned that our networks of love and belonging are as large as we make them, and then larger still. It was a place of Unitarian Universalist faith where I was assured that the source of love in which we live and move and have our being can never be lost, no matter how the world may change, no matter how far we may venture. I had that growing up, and we have that here. We benefit from this house, and we create it. A place where we nurture a sense of home in us and in our children, where we find solid ground of reliable and loving friendship from which to journey forth, and where each of us are helped to find that glowing inner ground that does live in us, which connects us to that larger, eternal sense of love, and in which we are always held, always home. Always home, and thereby ready to venture out into the world. Because what does it look like when the church is a place of belonging from which to journey? It looks just like our vision. It is a vision of a community where we are centered and rooted in faith, sustained by a spiritual home, and thus ready to go beyond our walls, truly able to take bold action. The sense of security developed in our spiritual lives gives us courage and clarity in our work in the world. That is why we work to transform our community, not just as concerned citizens, but as people of faith, because we are sustained by something deep. This is why we can risk ever larger vision, because a tree with deep roots grows tall, and work done from a solid ground of love reaches far. So as you venture forth from this place to serve in ways large or small, know this: you are bound by an eternal sense of love that is never lost. You belong. This is a shelter for your soul, where together we hold on to what is good. Here you are held. Here and beyond, you are home. May it be so. And let us sing together hymn number 336, All My Memories of Love. You may remain seated as we settle into a spirit of prayer with this hymn.
Yesterday a child came out to wander, caught a dragonfly inside a jar. Tearful when the sky was full of thunder, and tearful at the falling of a star. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. Then the child moved 10 times round the seasons, skated over 10 cliff-frozen streams, and words like when you're older must appease him, and promises of someday make up his dreams. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. 16 springs and 16 summers gone now. Cartwheels turn to cartwheels through the town, and they tell him, take your time, it won't be long now, till you drag your feet to slow the circles down. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go round and round and round in the circle game. So the years spin by, and now the boy is 20. His dreams have lost a lot of grandeur coming true. There'll be new dreams, maybe better dreams, and plenty of new dreams before the last revolving year is through. And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on a carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came, and go